Welcome. My name is Shannon Brown. I'm the supervisor of special education for the district. And in that includes all special children, so gifted education is part of that. Tonight we're going to talk about gifted supports and services, but before we do that, we'll do some introductions and we will just review our website and some things that might be useful to you. So I'll just go around. This is Sean Dukevich. He is the principal of Chadds Ford Elementary School. Dr. Leah Ryder is the director of special education for the district, and also gifted ed falls under her, as do I. This is Maureen Dukes. She is the psychologist at the Patton Middle School. Right? I said all that right? Okay. I have to look up your title. Hold on. This is Tricia Egner. She is the Chester County Intermediate Unit Gifted Staff Development Specialist. So we are happy to have her here with us this evening to talk about gifted. Next in line, we have Pat Clark. He is the high school gifted support teacher at UHS. He just left football, so we're happy he made it over here. We have Marisa Garris. She is the gifted support teacher at Chadds Ford Elementary. And then we have Janet Schuster. She is one of two gifted support teachers at Patton Middle School. Okay, so that's sort of our team. And actually hiding in the back and not wanting to be announced is Tara Holla. She is a gifted support teacher primarily at Hillendale Elementary School, but she also does support students at Pocopson Elementary School. So thanks, Tara, for hiding out in the back. So just to review, U-PRISE started out as a support group for parents of students with special needs, and we've since branched out to support all of our students with special needs, including gifted education, students who need gifted support. So tonight is actually the first night that's solely dedicated to gifted education and gifted supports. Our last presentation last month, if you were able to watch online or if you were able to attend, was sort of for both populations, which was great. We had Dr. Al Friedman out, who was a local psychologist, and his student his son was a Unionville grad, so we were happy to have him talk about learning differences, sort of on both ends of the continuum. So the purpose is not only for us to be able to communicate with you and share resources and information, but for you to give us feedback and ask questions, and us to work together as a team to better support our students to meet their needs and support greater achievement for them in all areas. So we're happy to have you here, and we hope you can meet at least one new person tonight that you could connect with. I do just want to share some exciting things. Our next advisory committee meeting is next month, so if you would like to have any say in future planning, future communications, future topics, or if you know any great speakers, advisory committee is the place to share that, and we meet right here, right before this meeting. So next month our meeting is December 14th. I think it's a Wednesday, and we will meet right here at 4:30 prior to. If you would like to join the advisory committee, anyone's welcome at any time. We welcome all feedback. We're also on Twitter at U-PRISE. We have a district website, which I'll show you in just a second, which is just the district website and then /U-PRISE. And something new that we have, thanks to technology, is a U-PRISE email. So you can now email UPRISE at ucfsd.net directly if you had a question just for U-PRISE, and I have to learn to check that on a regular basis. You can also email anyone in your building. Leah or I, we're always available. Our cards are over there. There's a U-PRISE swag over there, so I hope you picked up a pen and Post-it notes so that you can take notes today. And remember, our website is on there. And then I did want to share just the website really quickly. If you forget the /U-PRISE, you could just go to ucfsd.org and go to special education. And then U-PRISE is on the left. And so on our homepage, I apologize, it's gigantic. There we go. On our homepage, we have a whole bunch of links. We recently won an award from District Administration Magazine, so that was exciting. Maybe you saw us in the paper. But I have all of our upcoming meetings posted that we know about. And there's also the place for you to RSVP to upcoming meetings. You can do that on there. Our Twitter feed is on there. More importantly, though, if you go to the Community Resources page, all the school parent liaisons are listed, so there's one contact parent in each building. So if you look at Unionville High School, Cecile Airways is our parent liaison, and she's actually sitting right here. So Cecile, say hi. So if you ever needed something and you were a high school family, you could reach out to Cecile, but those are the other contacts at the building. Sometimes people feel more comfortable reaching out to a fellow parent as opposed to a teacher or an administrator, and that's totally fine, and they can reach out on your behalf. On this page, we also share anything that's shared with us that we know about that's going on in the community. So if you have any resources that you ever find out about and you want to send them to us, we'd be happy to post them. A lot of them do revolve around special education, but we do post gifted things if we know about them, especially if they're going on in the district, we can post them, like, or the county, like science fairs and things like that we'll talk about in a little bit later.
Can I scroll down just for 1 second?
To what?
The college fair is next week.
Oh.
So just highlight that one.
There's a link right here for at Exton Square Mall on November 13th is a college fair. I actually think it's hosted by the IU, right? By the Chester County Intermediate Unit. So here's the actual flyer if you click on the link, and I think there's going to be hundreds of colleges there. So that is a really good one to look at if you want to visit the Exton Mall that evening. You could even trick your child. I would never suggest that. All right, and then the other really important page is the speaker series. All of our past presentations are archived here. So everything from last year, if something catches your fancy and you'd like to watch it, you can just click on it and you can see the video and the handouts from that month, from that session. And we'll continue to do that this year. So everything is here. So understanding special education processes and talking to your children about their differences are already archived up here. So you would just click on them and it'll bring up a summary, the video, and the handouts. So just know that that's always there. If you can't attend a meeting, it's always posted after the fact. It is not live. We do post it later. Okay? All right, so I'm going to turn this over right on time at 6:15 so that we can get started. Let me close out all these. Oh, not that one. All right, and I will let Tricia take over with her presentation on Chapter 16. Okay.
Thank you for that fabulous. And now that my mic is on, I'll reintroduce myself for those out in Cyberland who missed the 30 seconds I was talking before I turned the mic on. My name is Dr. Tricia Egner. I work for the Chester County Intermediate Unit. I'm very excited to be here tonight. Prior to coming to the IU, I was a classroom teacher for 9 years at the high school level, teaching mathematics. I had lots of different experience with special ed students as well as gifted students, and then coming to the IU and taking this position was, I thought I knew some things about gifted education, but I didn't know really anything until I started working for the IU and really learning the ropes, as it were. So I'm very excited to be here tonight with you all, especially being a UHS alum, 2003. Go Indians. So without any further ado, we're going to get started. So tonight we're going to be talking about three things. What is Chapter 16? How does a child get identified as gifted? As well as what are gifted services that we can provide here in Pennsylvania. So everybody, if you could do me a favor, take out your phones. I know you brought them with you. That includes you guys up here at the front table. Sorry out there in Cyberland, it's not going to be live for you anymore, but you can read the questions as we're going through. So you're going to go to that website, and then it's going to ask you to enter a room name, and the room name is all capital letters EGNER 5926. So I'll give everyone a minute or two. You can share with a friend if you didn't bring technology that will connect. That's fine. So I put together kind of the top 10 questions that I seem to get asked in this role as the gifted liaison between the Chester County Intermediate Unit, the state of Pennsylvania, and then school districts and parents, kind of bridging all of those gaps. So I took the top 10 questions that I seem to get asked and put them together in a little quiz, because that's always fun, right, to see what we know. Give everybody a minute to get it. And then Shannon, once you're ready, I'll give you the sign to navigate back to that website for me.
Oh, okay.
But we'll let everybody type in the address. If it doesn't seem to be working, we want to go to Socrative for students, if that one's not working. Did you get in, Shannon? Anybody have? Isn't that the beautiful part of technology? Let's give everybody another 30 seconds to get that website. Did everyone get it? Do we need to go back?
Oh, do you need me to go back?
Does anybody need? Yeah, can we go back? Sorry, just to the screen so everyone can, there we go. Perfect. Socrative for students. There's one for teachers and then there's one for students. You want to go to the student one, and then it's going to ask you to enter the room name. Hopefully it'll let some people in. Yay, okay. Fantastic, thank you, Chief Navigator. All right. So I'll read it out there in case it's a little small for those in Cyberland. According to Chapter 16, to be mentally gifted in Pennsylvania, one must possess outstanding intellectual and creative ability, the development of which requires specially designed programs or support services, or both, not ordinarily provided in the regular education program. So that's a true or false question.
Do I hit next or finish? Or how do we do?
There should be one more person who's waiting to answer. Let's click on how do we do. Maybe somebody got kicked out. There we go. Ooh, good. Everybody got that one right. Well done, everybody. So this is the official definition of what it means to be mentally gifted. That comes directly from Chapter 16 documents. They have the first, I think, page or page and a half is definitions of all the different terminology that they use in Chapter 16, and this is the verbatim definition of what it means to be gifted in Pennsylvania. Thanks. Here we go. Question number 2. A school district is responsible only for providing services outside the regular education classroom for gifted students.
I'm really enjoying the dancing turkey in between each question.
There's a dancing turkey in between. Oh, well, that's fun. I'm sorry out there in Cyberland that you're not seeing the dancing turkey, but it's apparently very delightful. I wonder if it does change.
I would hope so. Okay, let's see how we do.
How do we do? Ooh, interesting. So let's click on that show explanation there. So this one's false, and I'll read for out in Cyberland. According to Chapter 16, schools are obligated to provide services and programs that are planned and developed based on unique needs of the students, based in acceleration, enrichment, or both, as appropriate for the students to receive according to their academic ability and need. So some of these are a little tricky. Some of them may be true but or false but kind of questions. All right, let's go to the next one. Question 3. Districts are obligated to hold public awareness activities for gifted education.
Yes, you may be at one now.
You're watching one right now. Great. So yes, districts are obligated to hold yearly meetings or awareness activities, however they want to qualify awareness activities. This certainly counts as one, so good job meeting those Chapter 16 requirements to educate parents about what Chapter 16 is, what the requirements are, what their students are entitled to within the school setting. Excellent. Number 4, the only type of services that may be provided to gifted students are acceleration, enrichment, or both. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yes, according to Chapter 16, the only services we can provide are acceleration, enrichment, or both. However, if there's something else that's needed, say we needed to transport a student from an elementary school to a middle school for a class, that could technically be qualified as a service, but that would not go under the same part of the GIEP document that the acceleration, enrichment, or both would go under. So that's one of those yes, but no, but questions. All right, number 5. If a student is identified as gifted, then she or he automatically qualifies for a gifted individualized education plan. Is the turkey still dancing? Mm-hmm. It's so enjoyable. Yes, this is actually false. In Pennsylvania, we have a two-pronged definition of what it means to be gifted and qualify for a GIEP. First, the student has to be identified as gifted, and then the second part is that they have to be in academic need of something that goes above and beyond what they are currently receiving in the general education setting. So if the student's needs are being met, the teacher is already providing enrichment activities in a particular area that the student is gifted, then they don't need a document saying that they need something above and beyond. Their needs are already being met. But if we need something like a whole grade acceleration or enrichment in a specific subject area, that's where the GIEP would come into play. All right, next one. Multiple criteria. That's part of the definition for identifying gifted students. Multiple criteria for gifted identification may include a year or more above grade level, high rates of acquisition or retention, demonstrated achievement in one or more academic areas, early and measured use of high-level thinking skills, evidence that intervening factors such as English as a second language are masking gifted abilities, and talent in arts, music, or sports. Ooh, tough one. Everything except the last bullet is actually true. Unfortunately, in Pennsylvania, they don't recognize talent in art, music, or sports as gifted. In other states, you'll hear them say gifted and talented. In Pennsylvania, it's just academic based. So if a student is a talented football player, the coach would recognize that and do fantastic things on the football field with that student, and they don't need a legally binding document to say that the coach is going to do that on the football field. Similar with art and music, if a teacher notices that a student has a strong aptitude, they could take additional classes within the school setting or be encouraged to incorporate that into other regular ed classes like ELA or math or science, as well as take other activities outside of school or clubs or other things that the school offers in those areas. So everything up until that last bullet was 100%. Number 7, a GIEP is a strengths-based document. Means that it's based on things that the student is good at, as opposed to an IEP that would be a deficit-based document where the student is weak in this area, so that's where the goals are. Nice job. Yes. So wherever students are doing well, if they are gifted in math, that's where the goal would be for their GIEP. If they're gifted in multiple subject areas, we would have goals for all of those subject areas. But it's based on their strengths, not on their deficits. If there is a deficit, say, there's also a reading disability in addition to their giftedness in math class, that could be addressed in the document, but not in the goals section. That would go under the support services at the end of the document. Alrighty.
I hit next.
Oh, you did. You're so good. A gifted individualized education plan, GIEP team, can conclude that a child is gifted but not in need of specially designed instruction. So that GIEP team can make that decision. This one's actually false. The GIEP team is not the team that makes that decision. It's the, make sure I get the acronym right, there's so many, Gifted Multidisciplinary Team, GMD team. They're the one that actually makes the decision because that's the team that the school psychologist is actually part of. The school psych may or may not be part of the GIEP team. It depends on how much time they have on their hands. Typically not, but can be included. So that was a trick one.
That was a trick question.
I know. But one that I get asked many times. All right, coming down the home stretch. Two more. Advanced placement and honors level courses are considered gifted education services.
Guys are getting faster.
I know. I actually tried to do Kahoot, but the questions were too long and they wouldn't fit in the question blanks. Yes, this one's false. This is one of those true, false, yes, no kind of questions. They typically do not count as gifted services if they are readily available to all students in the school. If there's an honors course or an AP course or something else that's offered only to students who have the gifted identification, then that would be a gifted support service. But if I'm a student and I meet the grade requirements and I've taken the prerequisite courses to take AP Bio my junior year, then that's not a gifted service. All right, and last one. The point of gifted education is for students to be pulled out of the regular education classroom twice a week for special classes no one else receives. Excellent. So this may have been how gifted education looked maybe 10 or 15 years ago, but gifted education, at least in Pennsylvania right now, really is support for students in the regular education classroom in the form of acceleration or enrichment or both. Can they still be pulled out for meetings with other gifted students in a gifted support classroom? Absolutely. But the main focus really should be what's going on in the regular education classroom and meeting those students' needs in that setting. Same thing with special education side. We want to push in and be as inclusive as possible. Awesome. I don't think we need the report, Shannon, do you?
I was just playing.
Fantastic.
I wanted to see who was the fastest clicker.
Well, thank you all for participating. Like I said, those are kind of the top 10 questions that I get asked the most, so I thought it would be fun just to put a little game together. All right.
Can we save that game and use it again?
I can certainly share it with you, and we can figure out how to make that work, or I can export the questions and...
It'd be great to use with teachers.
Yeah.
See if they know the answers.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, so just very quickly, Chapter 16 is the part of Pennsylvania law that covers all things related to gifted education. Chapter 4 is school code, so it covers everything for regular education for all students. Chapter 14, thank you. Chapter 14 covers the special ed requirements, and Chapter 16 is gifted requirements. It was published in 2000 and it was revised in 2008. Really nothing has changed since about 2014. They held some hearings to see if they wanted to change anything in 2014, and nothing has really been updated since then. They made a couple tweaks and a couple definitions, but substantially no changes have been made to the document since then. And it covers everything from what it means to be mentally gifted all the way through writing the documents and the procedures that should be followed and the timelines and all that good stuff. The forms themselves, as well as what educational placement should look like for gifted students. So what does Chapter 16 say? Oh, looks a little blurry from here. Basically, it's just that we have to provide, we have to identify the gifted students, we have to find them by conducting screening and then further identification protocols as defined by the school district. State of Pennsylvania, as a commonwealth, they like to leave that very vague and up to each individual school district to determine what that specific protocol looks like. But it always starts with a general screener. Varies from school district to school district, even within school building from school building, because the screener for second graders is probably going to be very different than a screener for middle schoolers, depending on what's available in the school district. But we have to find the gifted students, and then we have to take them through the screening process. We need to have a consistent system to find those students so that it's applied fairly and equally among all of our students. And the last part there, what you're here for tonight, we're conducting awareness activities so that parents are aware of what those screening activities look like throughout the district when they're done, as well as informing parents of school-age children what that's going to look like. So what does it mean to be mentally gifted? The fun part. It starts in the formal definition with having an IQ of 130 or higher. And then I like that word or when multiple criteria as set forth are met. So just having the IQ of 130 is not enough, nor does that automatically disqualify a student from being identified as gifted, because there could be contributing factors that maybe are masking gifted ability. English language is a very common one, especially in our area, that students might not be able to speak the language fluently. So if you're taking a very language-heavy test, like an IQ test typically is, some are better than others in terms of verbal and nonverbal, but that could be a masking trait that would be affecting the IQ score overall. So the multiple criteria, we had a question about that. It's a year or more above grade level for their normal age peers. So if we're talking about a first grader, what are we expecting all first graders in that class supposed to be able to do? Acquisition or retention rate, instead of needing to hear things 3 or 4 or 5 times in a classroom, a teacher may only need to explain things once or twice before that gifted student is ready to move on to the next concept. Expertise in one or more subject areas. A student could just be gifted in math, or they could be gifted in many different subject areas. High-level thinking skills, academic creativity, leadership skills. Usually there's an intense academic interest. Typically I hear parents say, my student loves to read, and that's how they're starting to identify their student as gifted. It doesn't have to be that, just like the leadership skills. Not every gifted student has terrific leadership skills. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It just depends on the student. And then masking traits, we kind of talked about those earlier, but that could be a special ed student who may have some gifted abilities that are being masked by something like ADD or a reading disability or some other factors that would have been identified through the special ed lens, but maybe masking gifted abilities as well. So previously in Pennsylvania, parents would say, hey, I think my student is gifted, or a teacher might say, hey, this student is showing some really interesting abilities. I think they might be gifted. But teachers are very busy and they have a lot of students on their plates and lots of things to do. And sometimes students would slip through the cracks. Previously, before 2008, when we adopted Chapter 16, we really didn't have a succinct way to identify gifted students, and we weren't required to do screeners for all students. So now, casting that net has become much easier because we are required to screen students for gifted abilities so that we're not missing anybody and that we're not letting those children fall through the cracks and potentially lose their joy of learning very early on because they're not being challenged at an appropriate level. When we talk about gifted students, we're really focusing in on their intellectual age. We know that they have a chronological age based on their birth. We know that they have an emotional age based on maturity. But when we're talking about giftedness, we're really looking at their intellectual age. And even though a student may be 6, 7, 8, or 9, and we want to accelerate them, we may say, oh, they're not emotionally ready, but they are intellectually ready to be pushed further through acceleration or enrichment. So when we look at our effective system here in the district, our effective system finds the child. We have a plan that's prescriptive, meaning that we can apply it to consistently to every student in the district. It has defined targets that when we say we want a score of 90% or higher on this particular assessment, or we're looking for 130 to 150 on this particular assessment. We're looking for defined targets, and it has a clear link to our curriculum and instruction, so we know exactly what our 3rd grade benchmarks are or our 5th grade benchmarks are. So we can say it's a year or more above what we're expecting to be at grade level. So we put all of our students into our assessment, our screener. And typically the students with our bigger needs, our special ed students, get stuck at the top of our funnel. The ones with fewer needs, and then finally the ones who are above grade level come out at the other end of our screening protocol. So with that universal process, it's given to everybody, and we look for particular cut scores before we move on for more official testing. Then we actually apply the screening for gifted after permission is sent home. The universal screener since it's being done for every student, there may be notice sent home, but there doesn't need to be permission to evaluate since we're doing it for every student, because it's just data on where the students are academically. Are they on level? Are they below level? Are they above level? Once we get to the more formal screening for gifted, such as an IQ test or other forms of assessment such as that, we would definitely need to send some notice home that that's being done. You guys would be clued in. And then finally, we would meet as a team, that gifted multidisciplinary team. I'm sorry, the purple is so dark on the screen right now. To make that final evaluation as a team. Is this student gifted? Why or why not? What do we think we need to do for them from there? One of the questions from our little game earlier was talking about that two-pronged approach to gifted education. And this is probably one of the biggest shifts in gifted education in Pennsylvania. It's not just being gifted. It's not just having that IQ of 130 and meeting our other criteria as a district. It's also having that need for specially designed instruction. Students may be in need of just some extra enrichment, or they may need to be whole grade accelerated, or a combination of both, or anywhere in between on that spectrum of giftedness. But there has to be a need beyond what is being done in the classroom currently. So if a teacher is already doing a great job of providing enrichment activities, there might not be a need for a GIEP at that present time. There might be one in the future if, say, you get to a different teacher and they don't have the same enrichment opportunities that third grade teacher did. You could always go back and reevaluate as a team and decide, yes, we need to put a GIEP in place. But it might not be necessary, particularly when you get to the high school level. If a student's taking all honors and AP courses, they might not need anything else, and that might be enough, so there would be no need for the GIEP at that point. We're going to skip ahead. Okay. So talking through our conclusions, based on the data that the team collects, student might not need or might not meet the gifted requirements, that IQ of 130 and the multiple criteria set forth by the district. That's the first option there. The second option is that they are gifted, but they don't need a GIEP because their needs are being met. And then the third option is that they are gifted and they are in need of a document that says they need more than what is being done in the regular education classroom. So those are the three choices when we meet as a team and make recommendations for moving forward. Now, just because you check the second box doesn't mean that a GIEP might not be necessary later down the road or that it couldn't be considered down the road. It just means at the present time, there's no need for one then. And then again, like we talked about in the little game earlier, the only three things we can do are enrichment, acceleration, or a combination of both for gifted students within the classroom. Oh, that looks really funky. Kind of tweaked a little bit. Anyway, so how do we decide what the student needs? Is it enrichment, acceleration, or is it a combination of both? So if we're thinking about along the bottom here, if we're talking about their expected grade level, if they're starting, let's see if my pointer will work. Yep, right there at the bottom of the little alligator mouth, that's on grade level. If the first bar is about a year to a year and a half above grade level, that would be, are you not gonna, oh, there we go. Oh, that's really light. Sorry about that. That's enrichment. So about a year to a year and a half above grade level would be some enrichment. Year and a half to 2 years would be enrichment or acceleration. Ooh, that's so much better. Thank you. And then 2 years or more above would be acceleration. So that's kind of our general rule of thumb, but obviously there are specific cases that if you had a student who was showing demonstrated areas of giftedness, everything's open for interpretation. This is just a guideline. So I kind of nailed it on time. I think we're going to hold on questions until.
We can take specific
Sure.
questions. Are there any specific questions on the law that you wanted to ask Dr. Egner right now? And we'll just repeat them into the mic, so go ahead.
Perfect.
Two questions actually.
Awesome.
First, I live in Delaware County. We're relatively new to the district. Footwear, child sports, we're right on that cusp. Is anything different because I live in a different county, or is it because we're in a child sports school, Unionville Child Sports School District? We fall under Chester County Intermediate.
Okay, so okay, let me see if I summarize this question correctly. Are things different or the same between counties? Is that the essence of the question?
Chester County Intermediate.
Correct.
But I live in Delaware County, even though I'm part of the school district. Does that matter?
No, if you live in a different county, it should be the same for all of Pennsylvania, and that's a great question too, even though this might not be your question. If a student is gifted in Avongrove or Oxford or Kennett and they come here, they're still gifted here. The document would follow them. Now, if they're coming from a different state, slightly different, they're still gifted. There might need to be some additional testing to follow up to see where they really are according to Pennsylvania guidelines, but still gifted. The document comes with.
When do you start casting this first broad net? Kindergarten, first grade, second grade, where you're testing everyone?
Perfect.
We're going to talk about that tonight.
Excellent.
Yeah, when
So
the teachers
the question
talk.
was, when do we start casting that net for catching all of our gifted students? And Shannon's going to talk about that later, or the team.
And then, and this might be addressed later too, enrichment versus acceleration, can that be in just one subject?
So the question was, enrichment and acceleration, can that be just in one subject? Absolutely. Or it could be whole grade. It just depends on what the student needs. Student could just be gifted in math or language arts or science or social studies or another academic subject area. So they may only need enrichment in that one area, or they could be gifted across the board and they might need something like whole grade acceleration.
And just to answer your question, we'll talk about it, but the second grade is when we do our universal screening.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So you mentioned that some factors can mask
Giftedness. Yeah. Yeah.
So, for example, the lack of attention.
Mhm.
In other places or countries, for example, they don't test 1, 2 when there is ADD or ADHD. So, how do you handle that? Because sometimes you really need to go different routes to identify a gifted student when there is a very strong masking criteria.
Yes. So the question was, how do we accommodate and identify students who may have a lot of masking criteria or factors? That's a tough question. It really is a case-by-case basis. You look at things like student and teacher input. You look at parent input also. There are lots of different types of assessments that can be given that aren't necessarily language-based if it's a language barrier, or you can do things. The school psychologist would be able to speak to this much more than I would. There are different types of assessments that can be given based on the type of masking factor that we think is out there.
Okay, now I have another question which is a bit related, which is sometimes you have at the same time a perception of giftedness. Is that the way you call it?
Mhm.
And at the same time, maybe such a lack of maturity that some teachers will, for example, recommend the pre-first instead of the first grade.
Mhm.
So I'm not taking from my children that on that stage. So but I had the problem with my second grader that I was offered the pre-first, for example, when I thought he really needed to go quicker rather than
Mhm.
slower. So I'm trying to ask that question for the parents who are on one hand thinking, oh my God, this kid might have a gift, but that are tempted to slow down instead of accelerating because of a lack of maturity or some other criteria. So what do you think? Because a gifted children that is slowed down instead of accelerated, that will not help its maturity
Yeah.
process. So what's your view on that? Apologies on that.
That's definitely a tough question. That I get that one a lot, actually. The question was, say you have a student in first grade and parents think there might be a need for gifted moving on to second grade, but the teacher feels that pre-first, first, is that the right? Okay. So, right. So, or even grade retention. Sometimes gifted students get turned off because they're not being challenged early on. We hope that that doesn't happen and that we find ways to catch them, but it does happen. I think that's where the team decision comes into play, and where you have to have really good data as a team to say this is the appropriate placement, and as a team we're going to talk about what we think this data really means.
Great questions, thank you. All right, so we'll just take a quick pause, and we're going to let Dr. Egner step to the side, and we're going to have our school team step up to the microphone so that they can present to you about specific gifted programming in Unionville.
Need a coffee or brownie? No, it's okay.
Oh, I forgot to mention that I put resources at the end of the slides there. I don't know if you want to. Do you want to continue? Do you want to use
Oh, yeah, do you mind?
No, not at all.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Yeah, no, I'm going to grab that real quick. Get my water.
Clicker first level.
Oh, I'm bad with the clicker. I can't even change channel. Don't give me the clicker.
Don't give him a clicker, he said. What happened?
Pat just said, don't give him a clicker.
Oh, no.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Yeah, they gifted education.
Okay.
So your mics are on if the red is on.
So that's on?
Yeah, so now they're all
Okay.
on.
Okay.
And I'll just introduce.
Yeah, I can stay here. Maybe we should put Marisa here because I think I'm last.
Okay. She's
Right,
going
that way
first,
she's good.
then I'm going, then she's
Then
going,
Maurice's
then
going,
I'm
and I can
going.
And then I can pull the mic in front of
Yeah.
you.
Does that work?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm here.
You're so flexible.
I try.
I know, you're great.
I try. We just got through the whole November 1st early decision deadline. Whew.
Who got early this year?
Well, just the getting stuff. We don't know yet. Usually it's around December. It's, it was that first deadline with all those seniors. Now they're a little relaxed there.
All right, for the sake of time, we'll keep moving, and we will have more time for more questions and chatting at the end. And Dr. Egner did want me to point out she does have resources at the end of her presentation, so we'll post the presentation on the website with the links, and if you wanted to check them out, you can check them out. All right, so for gifted education supports and services in the district, we do have teachers in every building. Marisa Garris is at Chadds Ford. Amy, who's not here tonight, Hoffman Reardon, is at Pecopson with the older grades. Tara Holla, who I think had to sneak out, is at Hillendale and Pecopson with the younger grades. Chrissy Rissmiller, who's not here this evening, is at Unionville Elementary, and then she has the middle grade at Pecopson. At Patton, we have Janet Schuster, who's here tonight, and Mary Jo Knauer, who could not be here tonight. And then at Unionville High School, we have Pat Clark. And our website is linked right there for you. It's just ucfsd.org/gifted, and you can also just go to the main website and choose the gifted from the department drop-down.
We did discuss the Chapter 16 in depth. I did wanted to recap a bit where we do talk about Chapter 16, what it's looking like for the intellectual and creative ability. We talked a little bit about mitigating factors for a child who may have attention or difficulties with executive functioning. We do have a population of children that are called dually identified. So they are children who have special education identification and also have gifted services. So there is that population out there that have the dually identified, and we meet both of those needs through their IEP. For identification, in Unionville, what we look at is a matrix. That matrix takes into account the overall screening that is completed through the OLSAT, and then there is different assessments that are done depending on the age of the child. You have the reading assessments that are done in elementary, in middle school. Your grade and GMAID are taken into account. So as you work through the matrix, different people are entering scores into that. In the middle school, you have your counselors who are compiling that screening component. When the child meets the criteria of the above phase 1 and 2 in the matrix, then they would come to the school psychologist to do the formalized IQ. So the matrix compiles universal screening, standardized assessments, and that is in Unionville the multi-point criteria that we use. We are right now working on making changes to the matrix. As you heard in the presentation about Chapter 16, we are looking at very heavily at the need component now. Before, it was somewhat, if a child hit the 130 or with the multi-point criteria, the child was eligible to receive gifted services. That need prong was there, but we weren't addressing it as heavily. Now we are being asked to look at that. So we're looking at our matrix to help with that decision. A child has the IQ or the matrix score, but is there a need within our curriculum? And you can understand, particularly when you get into secondary, we've introduced extended core programming. When you look at a secondary level, you have a variety of options. So when you look at a need for a document for a child to receive those services above and beyond the core, those are built in to a high degree within our curriculum. So you may see fewer children who actually have GIEPs as we move forward with this matrix.
All right. Some of the identifying needs Tricia already went over and explained through Chapter 16, but they also pertain to our district. And in particular, our district identifying needs is if a student qualifies as gifted based on the criteria that Unionville Chadds Ford has set up, the GMDT team, Gifted Multidisciplinary Evaluation Team, meets to review the student's performance, and that's in the academics, to determine if he or she is in need of specially designed instruction. That would be through a GIEP, a gifted plan. And some of the decisions after the meeting takes place include outstanding intellectual ability, but it does not require specially designed instruction because the curriculum in our schools are meeting the child's needs. Or they could be gifted and in need of enrichment, and we would take a look at whether the grade level standards need to be modified to provide additional challenge for the student. Could also be gifted and in need of acceleration, which we talked about. Tricia addressed that in Chapter 16, but we do that in our district. So if a student is performing more than 1 year beyond grade level in some or all of the classes. And then lastly, if they're gifted and in need of both enrichment and acceleration, that's something that we provide for them as well. So we talked a little bit about the Gifted Individualized Education Plan, the GIEP. So there's different parts of the gifted plan that go into the document. First is present levels of educational performance, and this is all data that is collected. So different things that we would look at are curricular assessments, standardized assessments. Right now we use GRADE and GMADE, which is a reading test and a math test. Also instructional levels, specialized skills. If a teacher, parent advises, this is something we should look at. And student surveys, they're all parents are asked to fill out a survey as well as teachers, and then class and report card grades as well. So that goes into the present levels. And from there, we then create goals from the different strengths that the student has. So that's a plan to meet the learning needs of the student that go above and beyond the curriculum. Outcomes should be measurable, and they have to lead to completion of the goal. So that's something that the student is working towards. And then SDIs are specially designed instruction, and that's that piece where they need specially designed instruction in order to have a GIEP developed for them. And those are adaptations or modifications to the curriculum, the environment, methods, materials, and setting for instruction, those kinds of things. And then are there additional support services that the child needs to be successful? and that would assist a gifted student to benefit from gifted education. An example of that would be, as Tricia mentioned, transportation to and from gifted programs, classrooms and buildings operated in the school district, counseling services, or parent education.
For the elementary and reading and math, so the students within their GIP, not all students, but some students might require a math goal or a reading goal. That's primarily carried out within the classroom because most of that time is spent within a homeroom setting. So the specially designed instruction might include alternative assignments. There could be alternative grading rubrics, opportunities for more rapid pacing and acquisition. There's greater challenges for more complex responses, and then also those independent study opportunities. At the elementary level, we also do an RTI model, response to intervention. So students are grouped, RTI or RTII it's called, and so students are grouped for reading, and so they have the opportunity to work at their reading level. So a lot of times students who have gifted reading goals, that would be an opportunity for them to work specifically on that reading goal. And then at the elementary level in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, our math levels are grouped as well based on either grade level expectations or enriched level. And so again, a student who has a math goal, that could be addressed during that enrichment level math class. And then for elementary, the timing, the amount of time that we typically meet with those students, kindergarten and 1st grade is about 30 minutes within a cycle. We work on a 6-day cycle. 2nd grade is up to 45 minutes in a cycle, and then 3rd to 5th grade is up to 90 minutes in a cycle. And that's the pull-out time that they come out of their homeroom and work specifically with a gifted teacher. However, that math and reading is embedded within their homeroom, so a gifted teacher might be pushing in during that time, or they could be in the cycle of the RTI where their children are still coming to that teacher, but during that math or that reading time to address the math and reading components of a GIEP. The differentiated instruction is based on need, and then the classroom teacher is implementing and monitoring the goals along with the support and the collaboration of the gifted support teacher.
Okay, so another important factor is when students leave elementary school and come to the middle school, and that's the transition year from 5th to 6th grade. So what kinds of gifted support are offered in middle school might look different than what's offered in the elementary school, what has been offered. The first thing is a 5th grader at the end of the school year, all the 5th graders will be taking a math placement test, and that will determine what level math class that they'll be placed in when they come to Patton Middle School. And this is very helpful because the math class then the student is placed in is because of their ability level. So most times that class is meeting their needs. The middle school also offers for 6th graders extended core ELA, English classes. Extended core is a step up. It moves at a quicker pace and goes into more in-depth. And we usually see most of our gifted students enrolling in that class. Another thing that happens from the transition from 5th to 6th grade is something called a gifted review of records, and that's a GWRR. And that's going to occur between the elementary teachers that have had these students for a few years and myself and Mrs. Knauer, the 2 AT teachers at the middle school. And we are going to meet with a gifted multidisciplinary team, all the regular ed teachers as well, parent input, and student input to determine if more supports and services are needed at the middle school level when they transition to 6th grade. And then GIEP will be developed when academic strengths have been demonstrated that are above and beyond the general education curriculum. In most cases, we see that their needs are being met in the general education classes with the 2 things that I mentioned, the ability grouping in math and with the extended core in English language arts. But if there's something that they need above and beyond in either those two subjects or the other subjects, because they'll be having different teachers for all the different subject areas, that is done as well. So that's how the transition it takes place. So middle school gifted education, what does that look like? Well, we collaborate with the general education teachers to offer differentiated instruction when the need is demonstrated by a student. If a student takes a pre-assessment and does very well on it, then we work with the teachers to come up with an independent plan for that student to delve deeper into that subject area. That's one way we do it. If the pacing seems a little slow, students will come and tell us. The class is really moving slowly for me. So we meet with the teacher and we come up with a different plan for them so it can better meet their needs. Gifted support right now in the middle school is offered in 6th grade 2 times per cycle and 7th grade 2 times per cycle. The way that is done now is it's built right into their schedule. They're not pulled out of a class. The way we do that, and that's currently, things may change, but they are enrolled in an AT, that's academically talented, literacy class in 6th grade. It's compacted. They meet 4 out of the 6 days. And the purpose of that is they might not all be gifted in reading, but they can grasp concepts a lot quicker. So the pace is faster, and it's more higher order questioning and learning. And then 2 days from that class, they come to an enrichment class that Mrs. Knauer and myself offer to give them different experiences than they would get in the regular ed classes. And the same thing happens in 7th grade, except it's a nonfiction writing class that's compacted. And they come to Gifted Resource for 2 days out of the 6 days as well. And then in 8th grade, it looks a little different. By the time the students get to 8th grade, they kind of know the different areas that they like and are interested in. So we offer for our 8th graders different topics each marking period. And if that's something that they like to do, they get to choose to take what we offer as an enrichment class, or they can take another enrichment such as music, art, tech ed, or FCS. So they have some choice in what they want to do. A lot of our students take us all 4 marking periods. Some do 2 and 2. Everybody participates, though, for part of the year. And that's how it looks in 8th grade for now. And then enrichment is available in all academic areas for identified students. And then we also offer extracurricular opportunities. We do a lot of contests and competitions. We offer different fairs. There's a computer fair, science research competition fair, and we have seminars where students can sign up because of an interest in something that we are offering for them, and they would come to us outside of the regularly scheduled time in Enrichment AT and participate in that seminar for a class period. Yes?
What's an example of a seminar?
We're offering, we just set it up, is a tangram challenge. So it's hands-on. There's little tiles, and then they're going to have to make puzzles. We offered last month a Fun with Logic seminar. We've done dissections of starfish, crayfish, frogs. We've done mythology.
This is one seminar?
It's offered, we try to offer one a month. Okay.
Great. And so gifted support at the high school really looks much more individualized. By the time our students get to the high school, if you have students who are in the high school, you're already aware of the number of opportunities our students have to excel at a really high academic level within the regular ed curriculum. Although we still do have students in our most advanced courses who still require a GIEP, a document, a small number of students. But at the high school level, the program has 2 functions. We support those students who have the academic needs beyond the regular curriculum, and we work to develop a plan that provides acceleration and/or enrichment when appropriate. Honestly, frequently at the high school, the more complex the course, the more it tends to be enrichment-based. Advanced placement courses offer usually suitable pacing, but there are times when students have the ability to pick up information quicker than other students, and so you would provide enrichment opportunities for those students. And then the second prong is that we try to meet gifted students' needs in a number of ways. There's one seminar course at the high school that students can take called, it's the HOTS course, Higher Order Thinking Skills, which is an introduction to academic discourse and discussion, but also troubleshooting of a lot of kind of everyday issues that gifted learners may face, things like procrastination or any of those things that many students struggle with, but particularly sometimes gifted students. And then as gifted teacher at the high school, I'm there to help parents and students with any needs that may arise. And so what can the gifted teacher offer at the high school? And so we'll work with students, parents, and classroom teachers to ensure that individual academic and social needs are met. The gifted support teachers in charge of maintaining GIEP documents and to help regular education teachers implement those documents. They're all strengths-based documents written specifically for academic courses. And so I serve as the liaison. I'm in no way a content area expert in math or science, for example. So I have to work with the student, the parent, and the teacher to come up with a plan that really meets the student's needs. And then at the high school, we offer support in a number of areas: time management, problem solving, self-efficacy, handling challenges, a challenging course or teacher, working as a liaison to regular education teachers, helping to promote and provide academic competitions and contests in conjunction with other staff. I work with the science department, for example, or the English department when competitions and contests come up. Information about summer institutes and other opportunities. Work in collaboration with counseling to maximize scheduling opportunities. At the high school, there are so many courses and just so many schedule periods in a day. And so a lot of times the trick is how can we help students to maximize access to advanced courses? And then, again, in conjunction with counseling, college planning and admissions support. And that brings us to the end of the overview of our program at Unionville Chadsford. Are there questions?
Okay. Yes. All right. Thank you. Feel free to hang out if you want to ask individual questions. Otherwise, thank you for coming. And we'll post everything on the U-PRISE website. And there will also be links to some of the resources that Dr. Egner shared, or didn't get a chance to share this evening. We'll post them up as well.
And I was just going to say, if you ever have any questions, just contact us via email. We'll be happy to answer them.
What's the general U-PRISE meeting on December 14th, something like this?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Sorry. I always do my PSA at the end, and I forgot. So our next U-PRISE meeting is December 14th, and it's on social media safety. And we actually have 2 teachers from Patton Middle School who are going to be presenting, who are, one is a tech person in the building, and the other teaches the technology, that same course at the middle school. So they're going to talk about that to our group of parents. So that's the next meeting, and there's an advisory committee meeting right before that meeting. So that's the next one. Yeah, no problem. Thank you again, everyone. Have a great night. And thank you to all of our speakers. And thank you to NHS for babysitting. If you heard lots of happy squeals out there, I think they're having a good time.